The rain hammered Seattle like it had a personal grudge, turning the streets into rivers of regret. When Caleb's hand finally found mine under the dim glow of our apartment lamp, "Jamie," he whispered, his voice cracking like thunder, "I think I'm falling for you, and it scares the hell out of me." But before I could pull him closer, the door flew open with a bang that rattled the windows, and there stood Zachary, Caleb's dad, soaked to the bone, his eyes widening not in shock at us, but in a haunted recognition that ripped the air from the room. I froze, my heart slamming against my ribs like a trapped bird, Caleb's fingers slipping from mine as if burned. Zachary didn't yell, didn't storm out. He just stared at me, water dripping from his graying hair onto the worn hardwood floor, and in that endless second, I saw it. The ghost of a man I'd only glimpsed in faded photos, a man who looked too damn much like my own father. "Jamie," he said, his voice a gravelly echo from another life. You're his son." We'd been roommates for 6 months, Caleb and I, thrown together by the cruel math of Seattle's skyrocketing rents and our shared desperation for a fresh start. I was 22, fresh out of community college with a barista gig that barely covered my half of the utilities, chasing some vague dream of graphic design in a city that chewed up artists like yesterday's gum. Caleb was 23, a barback at a dive in Capitol Hill, all lean muscle and easy grins, with that effortless Pacific Northwest charm. Flannel shirts over band tees, hiking boots scuffed from trails I'd never hike. We clicked from day one, or at least that's what I told myself to drown out the way my pulse quickened when he laughed too loud at my dumb jokes or slung an arm around my shoulders after a long shift. It started innocent enough. Late-night ramen sessions on the sagging couch we'd salvaged from Craigslist, trading stories about growing up in the shadow of absent dads. Mine had bailed when I was 8, leaving Mom to scrape by in a Tacoma trailer park, his only legacy a box of old Polaroids and a lingering ache I buried under sarcasm. Caleb's dad, Zachary, was the opposite. A high school history teacher in Spokane, divorced, who showed up for birthdays with awkward hugs and lecture-like advice on building character. Caleb rolled his eyes about it, but I could hear the hurt underneath. The kid who wanted more than postcards from a man too buried in his own regrets to bridge the gap. That first hook of tension came on a foggy October morning, when Caleb stumbled into the kitchen in nothing but boxers, hair a wild mess, and caught me sketching at the table. "Dude, that's me?" he asked, peering over my shoulder at the half-finished portrait, his profile against the Space Needle, eyes soft in the rain. I shrugged, heat crawling up my neck, muttering something about practice for my portfolio. He didn't move away. Instead, he leaned in, breath warm on my ear. "It's good, Jamie. Really good. Makes me look. I don't know, seen." That's when it shifted. That invisible line between bros blurring into something electric, unspoken. We didn't label it at first. Seattle's queer scene was everywhere. Pride flags fluttering from every other balcony. Rainbow crosswalks slick with drizzle. But admitting it felt like tempting fate. Caleb had dated girls in high school, or so he said, but there was that hesitation in his voice, the way he'd linger too long watching the guys at the gym. Me? I'd known since 15, when a fumbling kiss with my best friend behind the bleachers confirmed what the butterflies in my gut had been screaming. But love? That was a luxury for people without eviction notices looming. By November, the air between us crackled. We'd crash on the couch after closing shifts, his head on my lap as I ran fingers through his hair, pretending it was just exhaustion. One night, after a brutal double at the coffee shop where a customer had screamed at me over a wrong order, Caleb pulled me into a hug that lasted too long, his chin resting on my shoulder. "You're tougher than you think, Jay," he murmured. I wanted to believe him. God, I wanted to kiss him right there, taste the salt of his skin. But fear clamped down like a vice. Fear of losing the one steady thing in my chaotic life. Then came Thanksgiving. Caleb's invite to Spokane hung in the air like a dare. Dad's doing turkey and football. It'll be lame, but come? Mom's in Portland, so it's just us guys. I hesitated. Family holidays were minefields of Mom's forced cheer and my stepdad's beer-fueled rants. But the thought of Caleb's hand brushing mine under the table won out. The drive east was a blur of evergreens and classic rock, his playlist heavy on Bon Iver and The National, songs about longing that mirrored the knot in my chest. Zachary's house was a modest rancher on the edge of town, all faded siding and a yard choked with pine needles. He greeted us at the door with bear hugs and a six-pack, his laugh booming like he was compensating for lost time. Tall, broad-shouldered, with salt and pepper hair and laugh lines etched deep. He reminded me of those old Western heroes, rugged, but with eyes that held too many unspoken storms. "Caleb's told me about you, Jamie. Artist, huh? Like your old man." My stomach twisted. How much had Caleb shared? But Zachary just clapped my back and ushered us in, oblivious to the way my world tilted at the casual mention. Dinner was a minefield of small talk. Zachary grilling Caleb about job prospects, me dodging questions about mom with vague nods. But under the table, Caleb's knee pressed against mine, a secret anchor. Later, as we cleared plates, Zachary pulled out a photo album, the kind with sticky plastic sleeves yellowed by time. "Look at this," he said, flipping to a page of college shots. Him and a group of guys at what looked like a frat party, all grins and raised beers. One photo stopped me cold. Zachary, younger, arms slung around a man who could have been my twin if time hadn't carved him softer. Same hazel eyes, same crooked smile. "That's your dad, Jamie?" Zachary said quietly, when Caleb stepped out for a smoke. "We roomed together at UW. Wild times." The words landed like a sucker punch. My father, gone a lifetime ago, beaming next to the man who'd raised my roommate. "You knew him?" I managed, voice thin. Zachary's gaze flickered, something raw flashing before he shuddered it. "More than knew. He was family." But he changed the subject, pouring scotch and launching into a story about a legendary road trip. I nodded along, but the image burned. Two men, arms linked, secrets sealed in faded ink. Back in Seattle, the holidays faded, but that photo lingered like a bruise. Caleb and I danced closer to the edge, stolen glances turning to brushes of hands. A movie night where his fingers traced mine during the credits. "What if we tried?" he whispered one night, rain pattering the window like applause. I kissed him then, tentative, his lips soft and hesitant, tasting of mint and possibility. It was fireworks and fear, his hands framing my face as if I might vanish. "I'm all in, Jay," he said after, foreheads pressed together. Screw the what-ifs. But the universe, that cruel bastard, had other plans. It was mid-December, a Friday night when the power flickered from the storm, leaving us tangled on the couch under a blanket fort of fairy lights. We just confessed everything. The crushes, the dreams, the terror of labels in a world that still whispered freak behind closed doors. Caleb's head was on my chest, his heartbeat syncing with mine, when the door rattled like Judgment Day. Zachary burst in, key in hand. Turns out Caleb had given him a spare years ago, for emergencies. He was drenched, face ashen, clutching a manila envelope like a lifeline. His eyes locked on us, the blanket slipping to reveal our entwined hands, and for a heartbeat, I braced for the explosion. But instead, he sagged against the frame, whispering my name like a prayer. "Jamie, you're his son. And this?" He thrust the envelope forward, papers spilling like confetti from hell. "This changes everything." We scrambled up, Caleb pale as milk. "Dad? What the?" "It's not what you think." Zachary cut in, voice breaking. He collapsed into a chair, the envelope trembling in his grip. Inside were letters, yellowed and creased. My father's handwriting, addressed to Zachary. Dozens of them, spanning years. "Your mom never knew," he said, eyes on me. "We were in love, Jamie. Back in college. It was the 80s, Reagan's America, AIDS scares, kids getting beaten for holding hands. We hid it, buried it. When he met your mom, I let him go. Thought it was noble. But he wrote these after you were born. Every birthday, every milestone he couldn't share with me." Caleb snatched one, reading aloud in a voice like shattered glass. "Zach, he's got your eyes. I see you in him every day, and it guts me. I chose safety over us. But God, I miss you." The room spun. My father, straight-laced, vanished dad, had been gay? In love with Caleb's father? The man who'd shaped my roommate's world? You lied. Caleb spat, betrayal twisting his features. All those years preaching honesty builds character? You were screwing around with Jamie's dad while Mom was. No! Zachary surged up, face crumpling. It ended before she even knew him. I drove him to the altar myself, for Christ's sake. Watched him build a life I couldn't touch. And when he left me these. Said if anything happened to him, get them to you one day, Jamie. Make sure you knew you weren't alone in this. The truth crashed over us like the storm outside. My family story, once a simple tale of abandonment, now a tapestry of hidden loves and silent sacrifices. Dad hadn't run from responsibility. He'd run from a world that demanded he choose. And Zachary? He'd carried that torch alone, raising Caleb with echoes of a ghost. But betrayal festered. Caleb stormed out into the rain, yelling about fractured trust, leaving me to sift through the letters with Zachary. Each word was a knife. Dad's confessions of stolen weekends in hidden cabins, the ache of watching Zachary marry, the joy of my birth laced with sorrow because I looked so much like the man he couldn't have. He wanted you to know, Zachary said, voice hoarse, that love like ours is not a curse. It's the truest thing. I found Caleb at our favorite pier, soaked and shivering, staring at the black water. How do we do this? He asked when I wrapped him in my jacket. You're like family now, but I love you, Jay. Not as a brother. We clung there, the city lights blurring through tears, and in that raw honesty, the conflict cracked open. What did it mean to love across bloodlines woven by secrets? The climax built over weeks. Fights that echoed off our thin walls. Caleb accusing Zachary of poisoning our shot at normal. Me torn between the father I'd lost and the one fate had dropped in my lap. Zachary hovered, offering apologies over coffee runs, sharing stories of Dad's laugh, his terrible poetry, the way he'd hum show tunes in the shower. One night it boiled over. Caleb confronted him in our kitchen, voices rising like the tide. You let me think you were some straight arrow dad. What else are you hiding? Did you ever love Mom? Or was that just another cover? Zachary didn't flinch. I loved her, son, as best I could. But your grandfather, he found the letters once, beat me black and blue, called me an abomination. I learned to lock it away. For you. For all of us. The admission hung heavy, a bridge of pain connecting generations. Caleb deflated, sinking to the floor, and for the first time, father and son wept together. Not for the past, but for the men they'd become despite it. In the quiet after, Caleb turned to me, eyes fierce with resolve. We're not them, Jamie. We don't hide. We rebuilt, brick by emotional brick, therapy sessions in a cramped office overlooking Elliott Bay, where we unpacked the weight of inherited silence. Zachary joined once, his presence a steady anchor, sharing Dad's old mixtapes. Springsteen anthems about broken highways and unspoken dreams. Romance bloomed amid the ruins, tender and fierce. Caleb's kisses turned bold, his hands mapping my skin with the reverence of someone who'd stared down ghosts. We hiked the Cascades at dawn, his laughter chasing away shadows, and on New Year's, under fireworks exploding over the sound, he whispered, "Marry me someday? When the world's ready." I said yes, tears mixing with rain, because love like ours wasn't borrowed time. It was defiance. The humanistic turn came in spring. When Mom visited, the letters spread on our table like offerings. She read them silently, face crumpling, but not in anger, in release. He was always drifting, she said, touching my cheek. Now I know why. And you've got his heart, Jamie. Don't waste it hiding. Zachary stood beside her, two survivors forging peace. And in that moment, our family story rewove. Not erased, but expanded. Bloodlines blurred, but bonds? They held stronger. Years later, Caleb and I stood in that same Spokane rancher, now ours after Zachary's quiet handover, toasting him on his porch swing. To truths that set us free, he said, raising a glass, his eyes, my eyes, shining with the peace of a life finally owned. And as the sun dipped behind the pines, I knew. The door that burst open that stormy night hadn't shattered us. It had finally let the light in. The aftermath of that envelope's unveiling lingered like the damp chill that seeped into Seattle's bones, turning every glance between Caleb and me into a question mark. We tried to reclaim normalcy. Mornings brewing coffee in chipped mugs, evenings scrolling job listings for something beyond survival. But the air hummed with unspoken what-ifs. What if Dad had stayed with Zachary? What if Caleb and I were tangled in a legacy too knotted to untie? I'd catch him staring at the letters I'd tucked into my nightstand, his jaw tight, and wonder if the pull between us was love or just the gravity of ghosts. Work became my escape. The coffee shop, with its hiss of espresso machines and parade of hurried commuters, was a bubble where identities blurred into lattes and tips. But even there, Dad's words haunted me. One slow afternoon, as I wiped down the counter, a customer, an older guy with a faded AIDS ribbon pin on his lapel, ordered a black coffee and lingered. "You look like someone I knew," he said, eyes narrowing. "From the activist days. Tom Ellis? He marched with us in '87. My hand stilled on the rag. Dad's name out loud in the wild. "Yeah," I replied, voice steady by miracle. "That was my father." The man nodded, sharing a snippet. Dad, bold at rallies, arm in arm with a group that included a young Zachary, chanting for rights in a city that turned its back. I texted Caleb the story from my break, half expecting radio silence, but he showed up 10 minutes later, apron still tied, pulling me into the alley for a kiss that tasted like urgency. "We're telling people," he declared against my lips. "No more shadows." It was his way, blunt, boyish determination masking the fear I felt too. That night, we posted a photo on socials. Us at the pier, arms linked, caption simple. "Building our story, one truth at a time. Love wins every time." Likes poured in from friends, rainbows in the comments, but the real test came from family. Zachary called the next day, voice tentative over the line. "Saw the post. Proud of you boys. Listen, I want to make this right. Dinner? Neutral ground." We met at a diner in Ballard. Vinyl booths sticky with history. The kind of place where fishermen and hipsters coexisted uneasily. Zachary arrived early, fidgeting with a napkin, his teacher poise cracked. "I owe you both apologies," he started, pushing a small box across the table. Dad's old watch, engraved with ZNT Forever. "He left it with me. Said it was for you, Jamie, when you were ready to carry the time." Caleb's fork paused mid-air, betrayal flickering anew. "Why now, Dad? After all this time?" Zachary leaned in, eyes wet. "Because I see you two fighting the same battles I lost. Hiding love doesn't protect it. It starves it. Your mom, she knew bits. After the divorce, she wrote me, said she'd always suspected, and forgave me for not being brave enough." The revelation landed soft, a balm on old wounds. Caleb reached for my hand under the table, squeezing, and for the first time, the three of us laughed, raw, real, over pie that tasted like reconciliation. But conflict simmered beneath. Caleb's shifts at the bar stretched longer. His texts curt, "Busy night. Talk later." I'd lie awake, tracing the watch's face, wondering if the legacy was too heavy. One evening, he came home reeking of whiskey and regret, collapsing beside me. "A regular cornered me," he confessed, voice muffled in the pillow. Asked if I was one of those after seeing the post. Laughed it off, but what if Dad's right? What if we're just repeating history? I pulled him close, our breaths sinking in the dark. Then we write a better chapter. Together. Romance, in its fragile bloom, became our rebellion. We stole weekends up the coast to the San Juans, kayaking misty inlets where orcas breached like omens of freedom. Caleb's laugh echoed off the waves as he splashed me, water beating on his lashes, and in those moments, the world shrank to us. Two kids from fractured homes, forging something unbreakable. Back home, we'd cook disasters, burnt stir-fries that ended in flower fights, and slow dance to vinyl crackle, his cheek against mine, whispering dreams of a studio for my art, a food truck for his chef ambitions. Yet the climax loomed, inevitable as Puget Sound fog. It hit during a family call with Mom, her voice tinny from Tacoma. I'd mustered courage to share the letters, bracing for fallout. Silence stretched, then a sob. Oh, Jamie. I knew he was restless. But, love, like that. Hurt laced her words, not at Dad's truth, but at the years she'd shouldered alone. You think I didn't try? Therapy. Churches. Hell, I even drove to Spokane once. Banged on that man's door. My blood ran cold. Zachary? What happened? She laughed bitterly. He answered, looking like your father reborn. We talked civil, you know? He said Tom had chosen me and that was that. But I saw it, the regret. Left feeling more alone than ever. The call ended in tears, but the seed of doubt sprouted. Was Zachary's noble sacrifice just cowardice? Had he strung Dad along, then discarded him? I confronted him at his hotel, visiting for a conference, pacing the carpet like a caged wolf. Did you ever fight for him? Or did you just wave goodbye and build your straight life? Zachary's face crumpled, pulling a final letter from his wallet, creased from years of carry. Read it, he urged. Dad's scrawl. Zach, if I walk away, it's not you. It's the world. Marry her, build something. But know this, you're my always. For Jamie, tell him to love loud. Tears blurred the ink. Zachary sank to the bed, head in hands. I tried after, called, wrote. He changed his number, moved you kids away. Thought it was best. The betrayal inverted, not his but mine, for assuming malice where grief ruled. I left him there, storming into the night, only to find Caleb waiting in the lobby, eyes red-rimmed. Mom called me too, he said. Said we deserve better than half-truths. We drove home in silence, the wipers slashing rain, until he pulled over at a viewpoint, city lights sprawling below like scattered hopes. I can't lose you to this, Caleb said, turning to me, voice fierce. Not to ghosts, not to what-ifs. His kiss was salt and storm, hands cupping my face as if memorizing. Promise me we choose us. I nodded, breaking then, the weight of generations lifting in his arms. That night we burned the letters. Not in anger, but release. Ashes swirling up the chimney like prayers set free. Spring thawed the ice, bringing tentative blooms. We joined a support group for queer families, stories echoing ours. Sons uncovering Dad's hidden loves, mothers forgiving the unforgivable. Zachary visited more, his presence shifting from intruder to ally, coaching Caleb through culinary school apps, framing my first gallery sketch. Mom even flew up, the four of us at a waterfront brunch, toasting with mimosas to new chapters. Her hug lingered, whispering, he'd be proud, kid, of the man you're becoming. Caleb and I grew roots. My designs landing a freelance gig, his bar promotion funding date nights at hole-in-the-wall jazz clubs. Love deepened, not in grand gestures, but quiet ones. Notes in lunch bags, feet tangled under diner tables. And when Pride rolled around, rainbow flags whipping in the wind, we marched hand in hand, Zachary trailing with a sign. Better late than never. Love my sons. The crowd cheered, but it was his arm around my shoulders, Caleb's grin beside, that felt like victory. In the end, the truth hadn't shifted our family story into ruin. It had rewritten it with color, depth, the messy beauty of humans daring to love beyond the lines. And as we collapsed that night, spent and joyful, Caleb murmured, here's to the unannounced entrances that change everything. I smiled into his hair, heart full. Yeah. To all of it. Summer in Seattle was a myth, all teas of sun before the gray reclaimed the sky. But that July brought heat waves that turned our apartment into a sweatbox of revelations and reckonings. Caleb and I had settled into a rhythm. Mornings tangled in sheets, his snores a gentle rumble against my back. Afternoons apart in the grind, evenings reclaiming each other with rooftop beers and stargazing that felt like plotting our future. The letters were gone, but their echo shaped us. Caleb's sudden urge to call his mom weekly, drawing out stories of her own quiet rebellions. My sketches evolving, portraits of unseen lovers in shadowed corners, selling at local markets to whispers of raw and real. Yet beneath the idol, conflict brewed like oversteeped tea. Zachary's increased presence, weekend barbecues, unsolicited advice on investing in yourselves, grated on Caleb. "He's trying too hard," he'd mutter, flipping burgers with unnecessary force. "Like guilt's a currency now." I'd mediate, citing the group sessions where we'd learned forgiveness was a muscle, not a switch, but privately doubt-nod. Was this our life? Forever triangulated by a past neither of us owned? The spark ignited during a heat-soaked road trip south to Portland, chasing a music festival Caleb had scored tickets for. Zachary tagged along uninvited. "To Bond," he claimed, his truck loaded with coolers and that damn watch now on my wrist. The drive was tense sing-alongs to Dad's mixtapes, stories spilling like wine. How Tom and Zach had snuck into underground clubs, dancing in defiance of raids. Their first kiss under a harvest moon at a vineyard. Caleb gripped the wheel tighter with each tale, until we hit a rest stop and he exploded. "Enough! You're romanticizing it, Dad. He left Jamie's mom high and dry." "He didn't leave," Zachary snapped, face reddening. "The world left him. We both chose survival over scandal." I stepped between, but Caleb's glare cut deep. "Survival? Sounds like selfishness to me." He peeled out, leaving us in dust, and the silence that followed was thicker than the humidity. Portland was penance. Caleb vanished into the crowd at the festival, bass thumping like my pulse, while I wandered with Zachary, the air thick with patchouli and possibility. We found a quiet bar off the main drag, nursing IPAs as he unloaded. I was terrified, Jamie, of losing Caleb, of being the punchline in small-town sermons. When Tom wrote those letters, they were lifelines I ignored, too scared to swim. His vulnerability cracked me open. Here was the man who'd loved my father fiercely, flawed as any of us. "You think I don't regret it?" he continued, voice low. "Every parent-teacher night, every time Caleb asked why Mom left, I swallowed the truth. But seeing you too, it's redemption I don't deserve." I texted Caleb our location, and he showed hours later, eyes bloodshot, reeking of festival haze. No words, just a nod, a hand extended. We drove back under star-pricked skies, the three of us quiet, the rift mending in the spaces between breaths. Back home, Caleb pulled me aside in the hall. "I get it now, the fear. But we're not running." His kiss was apology and anchor, slow and deep, bodies aligning like puzzle pieces long separated. Romance flourished in the fallout, turning summer's swelter into something sacred. We enrolled in a pottery class. His idea, to shape something lasting. Fingers slick with clay as we molded bowls that held our laughter, our fears. One evening, glazing a vase, he smeared a streak across my cheek, chasing it with lips that tasted of earth and earthier promises. "I love how you see the world, Jay," he said, eyes locking. "Broken, but beautiful." We made love in the studio after hours, not frantic but reverent. Bodies a canvas for the emotions words failed. Trust rebuilt, desire undimmed by doubt. But the true climax crested in August, when Mom announced a visit. Not casual, but loaded. "There's more to unpack," she said on the phone. Voice steadied by therapy, she'd started post letters. She arrived with a suitcase of Dad's relics. Journals, a high school yearbook, a locket with a tiny photo of him and Zachary, young and unscarred. We gathered in our living room, the AC wheezing like an old friend, and she laid it out, her side of the unraveling. He'd stare at the wall some nights, Jamie, whispering a name that wasn't mine. I thought it was work stress, affairs maybe. When he left, I blamed myself, too plain, too tired. But those letters, they explained the ghost. Zachary, invited despite the awkwardness, sat across, hands clasped. "Ellen, she held up a palm. "Save it. I'm not here for blame. For answers." What followed was a dissection, surgical and searing. Dad's bisexuality a secret even to her, his love for Zachary a parallel life he'd glimpsed in stolen calls. Betrayal layered thick. Zachary's silence post-wedding. Dad's vanishing act without a trace. Caleb shifted beside me, his own paternal wounds flaring. "So we all got screwed by silence," he said, voice-edged. "How do we stop the cycle?" Mom's response was a quiet thunderclap. She pulled a journal from the pile, Dad's entries chronicling not just love lost, but a plan aborted. "Coming out together, raising me in truth. He backed out for me," she said, tears carving tracks. "Thought a normal family was the gift. Biggest lie he told." The room held its breath, then Zachary broke. "I should have fought harder. Driven to Tacoma, dragged him back. Instead, I married, had Caleb, built walls. Confessions cascaded, regrets voiced, forgiveness bartered like currency. Caleb bolted midway, the weight too much, and I followed to the fire escape, where he chain-smoked, staring at the street below. It's all connected, Jay. Our love. It's built on their ruins." I knelt before him, taking his face in hands. "Or their foundation. They loved despite everything. We honor that by living it." His sob was release, arms crushing me close, and in that precipice we vowed. No more half measures. The storm broke with dawn. Back inside, the group had migrated to coffee, voices softer. Mom embraced Zachary. Not lover to lost love, but survivor to survivor. "We both loved a man who couldn't stay," she said. "Let's love his son enough to let go." Caleb joined, tentative, and by brunch's end, plans formed. A memorial hike for Dad, scattering ashes we'd never had, in the vineyard of that first kiss. Fall whispered in with amber leaves, our bond tempered like steel in fire. Caleb aced his first chef trial, plating dishes inspired by Dad's stories, herb-crusted salmon for stolen picnics. My art show, small but sold out, featured a triptych. Dad and Zachary's shadows entwined, Caleb's light piercing through. Critics called it a queer odyssey of inheritance. But to us, it was home. Humanism wove through the threads. Not erasure of pain, but alchemy. Zachary mentored a queer youth group, his classroom a safe harbor. Mom dated, a librarian with kind eyes, finding joy in later chapters. And Caleb, my constant, proposed on that hike, ring simple silver like Dad's watch, under vines heavy with grapes. "Forever starts now," he said, and as we scattered ashes to wind, I knew it did. Our family story, once fractured, now a mosaic of loves endured, truths embraced, and hearts unapologetically whole. Autumn's palette painted Seattle in fire, maples blazing along the waterfront, pumpkins stacking in markets like offerings to change. Caleb and I leaned into the season, carving jack-o'-lanterns with lopsided grins, their flickering eyes mirroring the spark we'd kindled from ashes. The proposal hung between us like a secret talisman, not announced yet, but worn in the way his thumb traced my ring finger during commutes, or how I'd catch him sketching rings on napkins at the bar. Life felt buoyant, the weight of revelations distributed, but undercurrents of conflict rippled, testing our resolve. Zachary's evolution was the first tremor. Emboldened by the hike, he dove headfirst into advocacy. Guest lectures at local colleges on queer histories unearthed. His voice gaining the cadence of a man finally exhaling. Caleb applauded publicly, but privately seethed. "It's performative," he grumbled one night, chopping onions for chili with vigor that bordered on violence. "Like he's erasing the years he left us in the dark." I understood, the sting of a father's belated spotlight, but saw the sincerity in Zachary's tired eyes after sessions. The way he'd text Dad's old jokes to make us laugh. "Give him grace," I urged, stirring the pot. "He's earning it, one story at a time." Our own stories intertwined deeper, romance a daily poem. We volunteered at a shelter, serving meals to queer youth kicked out like yesterday's news, their eyes wide with the hunger for belonging we knew too well. One kid, a wiry teen named Riley with blue-streaked hair, latched onto Caleb, peppering him with questions about making it work in a world that didn't. Watching him mentor, sharing tales of our stumbles, our triumphs, swelled my chest with pride, love sharpening to something fierce, protective. After shifts, we'd walk home arm in arm, stealing kisses in alley glow, his whisper hot. You make me want to be better, Jay. Every damn day. But betrayal's shadow loomed, subtle at first. A letter from Mom, forwarded without comment. Dad's handwriting on an envelope postmarked years after his disappearance. For Zachary, eyes only. It read, but curiosity cracked it open in my hands. Inside, not romance, but recrimination. You think silence was kind? Killed us both. Jamie asks about you in his sleep. Nightmares of a man who looks like his father but isn't there. The words accused not just Zachary, but the pact they'd made. Guilt surged. Had I, in sharing the others, unleashed this ghost? I confronted Zachary alone, at his favorite bookstore cafe, steam rising from our lattes like unspoken fog. He blamed you, I said, sliding the letter across. His face drained, fingers trembling as he read. I kept this box locked. Thought it protected you. The admission cracked wide. He'd intercepted mail, shredded drafts, all to spare us pain. Cowardice again, he admitted, voice ash. I can't undo it, Jamie. But I can stop now. Tears tracked his cheeks, and in that vulnerability, I saw not villain but vessel, carrying loves too vast for one lifetime. Caleb's reaction when I shared was volcanic. He paced our kitchen, fists clenched. He played gatekeeper to our history? What else did he bury? The fight spilled over dinner, Zachary arriving with pie as peace offering, only to face Caleb's barrage. You decided what we deserved? That's not fatherhood. That's control. Plates clattered, voices climbing until neighbors banged the wall. Zachary stood, coat in hand. Maybe I should go. But Caleb grabbed his arm, desperation cracking his anger. No. Stay. Tell me why. What followed was excavation. Zachary recounting the shredder's hum, the nights he'd wept over fragments, the fear of Caleb's small-town school turning him into a target. I wanted you safe, son, not scarred like me. Caleb listened, fury ebbing to empathy, and by pie's crust, they clasped hands. Forgiveness not full but forwarding. I watched, heart aching with the beauty of it, love for both swelling as Caleb later pulled me close. We're messy, huh? But real. The climax surged unexpected. In November's gray, a call from Mom, frantic. Jamie's biological, wait, no, there's papers. Dad's will, contested. Turns out, in vanishing, Dad had willed assets, a modest trust, life insurance, to Zachary as executor for his son. Mom, discovering post letters, sued for fraud, claiming deception. He owed us, Jamie, years of nothing. Her pain was valid, but the lawsuit fractured fresh wounds, pitting loves against blood. We flew to Tacoma, Caleb and I, mediating in her cramped living room, steam from tea curling like tension. Zachary joined via video, face haggard. Take it, he urged her. It was always for Jamie. But Mom's eyes blazed. And you? The man who got his heart while I got bills. The betrayal echoed Dad's letter, cycles spinning vicious. Caleb, ever the bridge, spoke up. This isn't justice, it's grudge. Let's split it. For Jamie's future, and a fund for kids like him, lost in the silence. Silence fell, heavy. Then Mom nodded, tears salting her resolve. For the boy Tom dreamed of. We signed papers that week, the trust seeding my design startup, the fund named Echoes Unsilenced, scholarships for queer storytellers. Zachary donated his share anonymously, a quiet atonement. Winter softened the edges, holidays healing in layers. We hosted Tree Strung with rainbow lights, table groaning under Caleb's feast. Mom arrived with cookies, Zachary with stories. Even Riley crashed, his grin a spark. Toasts rang to Tom, to truths, to us. Romance glowed in the hearth. Caleb and I slipping away to the balcony, snowflakes catching in his lashes as he knelt again, ring glinting. Officially, Jay. Marry me? Laughter bubbled. Yes on my lips, sealed with a kiss that promised eternities. The humanistic core emerged in spring's thaw. Not perfection, but persistence. Our wedding planning, small, beachside, with drag queens as officiants. drew the circle tight. Mom walked me down the aisle, Zachary, Caleb, vows weaving past and promise. In loving you, Caleb said, eyes locked. I found my whole story, and as waves crashed applause, I knew. The unannounced door had unlocked not just secrets, but souls. Our family, reborn in love's unyielding light. The engagement ring on my finger caught every Seattle slant of light. A silver band etched with always, Dad's word made talisman. Caleb wore its match, fiddling with it during slow shifts, his smile a private sunrise. Planning the wedding was our new language, spreadsheets of guest lists, 50 max, intimate, mood boards of driftwood arches and wildflower crowns, debates over cake flavors that dissolved into flour-dusted kisses in the kitchen. But joy's underbelly stirred old currents, conflict cloaked in celebration's finery. Mom's enthusiasm bordered on overdrive, calls weekly with venue scouts or playlist tweaks, her voice brighter than I'd heard since childhood. This is redemption, Jamie, she'd say. Your dad would dance at this. Yet beneath, resentment simmered, her dating the librarian stalled, too soon after the mess, and hints of loneliness crept in. Zachary, too, overcompensated, volunteering to DJ, his history teacher flair turning vows into timelines. Caleb bristled. He's inserting himself everywhere, like our love's his do-over. I'd soothe with logic, his guilt-fueled giving as love language, but felt the strain, our bubble thinning. Romance anchored us amid the whirl. We escaped to the Olympics, backpacking trails where ferns whispered secrets, pitching a tent under constellations that mapped our becoming. Nights by firelight, Caleb's head in my lap, he'd trace my scars, emotional, invisible, and murmur. You're my North Star, Jay. Steady in the shitstorm. Lovemaking was sacrament there. Bodies attuned to rhythm of wind and wave, reaffirming what words sometimes faltered. We were chosen, not cursed. Betrayal slithered in subtly, via an email from Riley, the shelter kid, now interning at my startup. Found this in Dad's Zachary's files. Attached, a cassette tape, labeled TNZ Mixtapes Volume 3. Curiosity clicked play in our living room. Caleb beside me, and out poured Dad's voice. Raw acoustic. Songs of longing, lyrics laced with you, that pierced. Midway, a spoken interlude. Zach, if you get this, tell our boy I fought. For us, don't let him think love loses. Caleb hit pause, face ashen. He kept tapes? And never shared. The accusation flew to Zachary that evening. Confrontation in his hotel lobby. Rain sheeting windows like veils. More secrets. Caleb demanded, thrusting the phone. Zachary paled, confessing, hundreds. I digitized some, but too painful. Thought it'd hurt more than help. Heard it did. Fresh betrayal. Caleb storming off. Me torn between mediator and mourner. Alone with Zachary, I pressed, why hoard the pain? He sighed, pulling a hidden drive from his bag. Fear, Jamie, of you seeing Tom's weakness, not his strength. We listened through the night, songs a bridge to the man I'd mythologized. His voice cracking on choruses, revealing a poet beneath the phantom. Caleb returned at dawn, soaked, collapsing into my arms. I hate this pull, he's my dad. But the lies. We wept together, then rallied. A bonfire packed, burning select tapes as release, keeping others for the wedding slideshow. Forgiveness was jagged, but earned in vulnerability. Zachary joining therapy with us, unpacking paternal failures in a circle of trust. Climax crested pre-wedding, in a rehearsal dinner gone awry. Mom arrived with the librarian, tentative hand in hand, sparking Zachary's awkward toast. To second chances, like Ellen's found, jealousy flared unspoken. Later, in the bathroom, she cornered him. Don't patronize. You had your seconds. Tom's ghost doesn't count. Voices rose, guests murmuring, until Caleb intervened, pulling them apart. Enough. This night is ours, not grudges. Chaos peaked when Mom slapped the table, plates rattling. You all romanticize him. Tom the martyr. He left me broken. The room froze, then fractured. Guests excusing, air thick with unspoken. Outside, under street lamps, we foreconvened. Mom, Zachary, Caleb, me. Confessions poured. Her isolation post-divorce, his celibate years post-Tom. Our fears of history's echo in our union. We're not them, Caleb declared, hand in mine. We talk. We stay. Dawn broke with hugs, tentative alliances reforming. Mom and the librarian deepening. Zachary vowing space without severance. The wedding dawned crisp, beach sands whispering benedictions. Vows exchanged with ocean chorus. In your eyes, I see home, Caleb said, rings sliding true. Drag queen officiant quipped, by the power of glitter and grit, I pronounce you husbands. Kiss like the world's ending, loves. Cheers erupted. Riley DJing Dad's tunes remix joyful. Reception danced till stars wheeled. Toasts weaving wounds to wisdom. Moms to loving fiercely. Even when it flees. Zachary's to truths that bind, not break. Post-honeymoon. Cabin in the Cascades. Days of nothing but us. Life layered richer. My startup thrived. Designs gracing queer mags. Caleb's food truck, Echo Bites. Slinging fusion with love spice. Family wove tight. Group trips to vineyards, where we'd toast Tom's shadow with non-vintage reds. Humanely, it wasn't flawless. Arguments flared, doubts whispered, but in the mending, grace grew. Love, we learned, wasn't absence of storm, but sailing through, oars synced, horizon shared. Years blurred to milestones. Adopting Riley at 18, his grin our son. Mom's remarriage, Zachary toasting as old almost flame. And on our 5th anniversary, replaying that cassette by firelight, Caleb leaned in. The door that opened changed everything, for the better. I kissed him, tasting eternity. Yes, unannounced but undenied. Time in Seattle flowed like the Duwamish, turbulent, then tranquil, carving canyons of memory into our days. 5 years married. Caleb and I had traded the cramped apartment for a fixer-upper in Fremont. Trolls and bridges our quirky kingdom. The food truck evolved to a brick-and-mortar bistro. Hidden flames. Nods to suppressed fires now blazing in open kitchens. My studio hummed. Commissions from publishers turning personal pain to public poetry. Graphic novels of queer lineages. Pages flipping like healed scars. Riley, our adopted firecracker, thrived at art school. His murals splashing Capitol Hill with unapologetic color. Yet the past, that persistent tide, ebbed and flowed. Mom and her wife, Clara, visited often. Their laughter filling gaps Dad's absence once hollowed. Zachary, retired now, wintered with a partner. A gentle bookseller named Miles. His life a late-blooming garden. Family dinners were rituals. Tales swapped like recipes. Conflicts aired like laundry. Aired dry in understanding. But beneath harmony, subtle conflicts lingered, testing the elasticity of our bonds. One stirred when Riley unearthed a box in the attic. Dad's, forwarded from Mom's garage sale purge. Inside, unsent letters to me, dated post-disappearance, penned in motels from Portland to Phoenix. Jamie Boy, one read, if you're reading this, I failed at brave. But no, love isn't straight lines. It's the curves we trace to you. Caleb found me sobbing over them at dawn, pulling me close. He's reaching across time, he murmured. Let him. We shared with the family chat, sparking a chain. Mom's relief at closure, Zachary's quiet. He was always writing his way home. Betrayal's whisper came softer. In Zachary's memoir draft, self-published, Echoes of the Closet. A teacher's unlearning. Caleb read it first, face storming as he tossed it aside. He outed Dad without consent, our pain as his plot points. The book detailed their affair in tender strokes, but glossed family fallout, framing his silence as protective pedagogy. Hurt flared. Caleb confronting over FaceTime, voice steel. This isn't yours to narrate alone. Zachary backpedaled. It's healing, son, for others like us. But the wound gaped, echoing old gatekeeping. We mediated at the bistro, neutral ground of simmering sauces. Riley joined, His youth a clarion. Publish, but footnote us. Get permissions. Zachary nodded, humbled, revisions flowing with input. Mom's addendum on resilience. My illustrations of Tom's shadow. Release party packed the shop. Readings met with nods. Not applause. Catharsis, not spectacle. Caleb's toast cut deepest. To stories shared, not stolen. Love you, Dad. Embrace followed. Betrayal transmuted to trust. Climax whispered in winter's hush. A health scare for Mom. Routine scans spotting shadows. Biopsy pending. Panic rippled. Flights booked. Clara's hand white-knuckled in mine. At the hospital, sterile halls echoing our fears. She confessed over vending coffee. If it's bad, tell Clara the full Tom story. No more half-lives. We waited, breaths held, results benign, early catch treatable. Relief crashed like waves. Group hug in the lobby. Tears salting vows renewed. To presence, to full disclosures. Spring's renewal mirrored ours. Caleb and I mentored at the shelter. Our bistro hosting queer youth nights. Free meals. Open mics where Riley's shared unbroken. Romance. Matured, was ritual. Anniversary hikes, his hand in mine over root beer floats at the old diner. Whispers of still falling against my neck. Intimacy deepened, not in novelty, but knowing bodies maps of joy's terrain. Love a verb in every touch. The humanistic denouement unfolded at a family retreat. Cabin in the San Juans, windswept and wistful. We scattered remaining ashes on a cliff. Tom's voice from a final tape playing. Live loud, loves. For the boy with my eyes. Toast circled. Mom's to second acts. Zachary's to belated dawns. Riley's to chosen kin. Caleb's to the door that dared us. As sunset bled gold, Caleb pulled me aside. Ring glinting twin to mine. 10 years from that night. Still shifting. Still us. We watch stars prick the ink. Family fireside. Stories looping like lighthouses. The truth that unannounced entrance revealed hadn't ended our tale. It authored it, chapter by chapter. Dramatic entrances, emotional tempests, romantic anchors, humanistic harbors. In America's vast, varied heart, from Seattle's rains to Spokane's plains, we'd built not just survival, but symphony. And in Caleb's arms, hazel eyes meeting mine, I knew. Every shift was grace. Every story ours.